stop right there. If you're a woman over 60 and you've been using pet names like baby or honey, thinking they make you sound affectionate, I need you to understand something crucial right now. You're actually pushing quality men away without even realizing it. There are 3 specific words that change everything. 3 words that make a man of value stop in his tracks, lean in closer, and see you as completely different from every other woman he's ever met. And no, these aren't the words you think they are. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why baby and honey are sabotaging your romantic possibilities, and you'll know the 3 powerful words that make a mature man feel something he hasn't felt in years. Something that makes him want to be around you, pursue you, and see you as the prize you truly are. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share goes against everything you've been taught about romance. Welcome to the Heart Code, where we unlock the deeper truths about relationships, attraction, and the power you hold as a mature woman. I'm so glad you're here today, because we're going to have an honest conversation about language, attraction, and the subtle ways we communicate our value to the world. If you've been single for a while, or if you're dating but not getting the results you want, or if you're simply curious about what truly attracts quality men at this stage of life, you're in exactly the right place. Before we dive deep into this topic, I want to ask you to do something for me and for yourself. If you find value in what we discussed today, please hit that like button. It helps this message reach more women who need to hear it. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or experiences. Your voice matters here, and I read every single comment. Share this video with a friend who might benefit from this perspective. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Heart Code and turn on notifications so you never miss our conversations about building the relationships and life you deserve. And if you really want to support this channel and help us continue creating content that empowers mature women, consider clicking the super thanks button below this video. Your support allows us to keep bringing you honest, transformative insights. Now, let's get into something that might surprise you, might challenge you, and will definitely change how you communicate with men. Here's what most women don't understand about pet names like baby and honey. These terms of endearment aren't neutral. They carry weight, they carry meaning, and more importantly, they carry assumptions about the relationship dynamic that you might not intend to communicate. When you call a man baby, you're unconsciously placing yourself in a maternal or caregiving role. You're signaling that you see him as someone who needs to be taken care of, coddled, or nurtured. Now, you might think that sounds sweet and loving, but here's the reality. Men of quality, especially mature men who have lived full lives, don't want to be seen as babies. They don't want to be in a relationship where they feel like a child being managed by a parent. The same principle applies to honey. While it seems harmless and affectionate, it's become so common, is so generic, so overused that it carries no real weight. It's what the waitress at the diner calls you. It's what your hairdresser says when you sit in the chair. It's what people use as a placeholder when they can't remember your actual name. When you use it in a romantic context, you're blending into the background noise of every other woman he's encountered. You're not standing out. You're not creating a unique connection. You're just another voice using the same tired language everyone else uses. But there's something deeper happening here that we need to address. The language you use reveals how you see yourself in relation to the man you're interested in. When you default to these common pet names, you're often doing it from a place of insecurity. You're trying to create instant intimacy before it's been earned. You're attempting to fast-track a connection by using language that implies a closeness that doesn't yet exist. And mature men with experience can sense this immediately. They can feel the desperation underneath the sweetness. They can detect the attempt to manufacture connection rather than letting it develop naturally. So what should you say instead? What are these 3 words that change everything? The 3 words are his actual name. I know what you're thinking. That's not magical. That's not romantic. That's just basic communication. But stay with me, because there's profound psychology behind why using a man's name is the most powerful thing you can do. And I'm going to show you exactly how to use it in a way that creates magnetic attraction. Let me break down why this works on such a deep level. First, understand this fundamental truth. A person's name is the sweetest sound they can hear. This isn't just poetic language. This is backed by neuroscience. When someone hears their own name, it triggers unique brain activity. The medial prefrontal cortex lights up. This is the part of the brain associated with self-representation and social behavior. When you say a man's name, you're literally activating the part of his brain that relates to his sense of self. You're making him feel seen, acknowledged, and important in a way that generic pet names never can. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Most people hear their name spoken constantly throughout their day, but they rarely hear it said with intention, with attention, with presence. They hear it barked by colleagues needing something. They hear it called out by service workers. They hear it mentioned in passing. But when was the last time someone said their name and really meant it? When was the last time someone used their name as a gift, as an acknowledgement of who they are? This is your opportunity. This is your advantage. When you say a man's name with genuine warmth, when you use it deliberately in conversation, when you speak it with respect and attention, you create something entirely different from what he experiences with other people. You create a moment of connection that feels personal, specific, and real. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're having coffee with a man named David. Most women would say something like, "Oh, honey, that's so interesting," or "Baby, tell me more about that." These phrases are forgettable. They wash over him without creating any real impact. But now imagine instead you say, "David, that's fascinating. Tell me more about that." Do you feel the difference? You've created specificity. You've shown that you're present with him, this particular man, not just any man. You've demonstrated that you see him as an individual, not as a role you need filled in your life. Or consider this scenario. He shares something vulnerable with you, something about his past or his feelings. The typical response might be, "Oh, sweetie, I understand." But what if instead you said, "David, thank you for trusting me with that"? Can you sense how much more powerful that is? You've acknowledged his specific choice to share with you. You've honored his name and his personhood. You've created a moment of genuine intimacy based on mutual respect rather than assumed familiarity. Now, let me teach you the 3 specific ways to use a man's name that create maximum attraction and connection. The first way is what I call the attention anchor. This is when you use his name at the beginning of a sentence to capture his focus and signal that what you're about to say matters. For example, "David, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday." This immediately brings his full attention to you because his name acts as a signal that something important is coming. It's not background chatter. It's directed specifically at him. The attention anchor works because it cuts through the noise of everyday conversation. We live in a world of distraction. Everyone is half listening while checking their phones, thinking about their to-do lists, mentally planning their next response instead of truly hearing what's being said. When you use a man's name at the start of a sentence, you pull him out of that distracted state. You demand his presence. And when a woman can command a man's attention without being demanding or needy, he finds that incredibly attractive. The second way is what I call the appreciation amplifier. This is when you use his name in the middle of expressing gratitude or praise. For example, "I really appreciate, David, how thoughtful you are about planning our time together." Notice the placement of the name. It's not tacked on at the end as an afterthought. It's woven into the sentence, which makes the entire statement feel more personal and sincere. The appreciation amplifier works because it transforms generic compliments into specific acknowledgments. Anyone can say, "You're thoughtful." That's nice, but forgettable. But when you insert his name into that recognition, you're saying, "You, David, this specific man standing in front of me, are thoughtful." You're making it about him as an individual, not about men in general or boyfriends in general. This makes him feel truly seen. The third way is what I call the intimacy intensifier. This is when you say his name alone as a complete sentence in moments of connection. For example, you're having a deep conversation and he says something that really resonates with you. Instead of responding with, "Oh, honey, yes," you simply say, "David." That's it, just his name, spoken with warmth and meaning. The intimacy intensifier is incredibly powerful because of what it doesn't say. You're not filling the space with unnecessary words. You're not trying to manage the moment or control the conversation. You're simply acknowledging him, his presence, his impact on you. This creates a moment of pure connection that feels rare and valuable. It's the kind of moment that stays with a person. Now I need to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, "But I like using pet names. They feel affectionate and warm." Isn't using someone's name kind of formal or cold? This is a fair concern, and I want to help you understand why this thinking is actually working against you. The problem with pet names in the early stages of knowing someone is that they're a shortcut. They're an attempt to create intimacy without doing the work of intimacy. Real intimacy comes from truly knowing someone, seeing them clearly, and choosing to connect with who they actually are, not who you hope they might be or who you need them to be. When you use a man's name instead of a generic term of endearment, you're showing that you're interested in him specifically. You're demonstrating that you're paying attention to who he is as an individual. You're proving that you're not just looking for any warm body to fill a boyfriend-shaped hole in your life. This is incredibly attractive to quality men because it shows self-awareness, confidence, and genuine interest rather than neediness or desperation. Think about it this way. If you go on a date with a man and within the first hour he's calling you babe or sweetie, what does that tell you about him? It tells you he's trying to manufacture intimacy before he's earned it. It tells you he's probably using the same approach with every woman he meets. It tells you he's not really interested in you as a unique individual. He's interested in having a woman, any woman, play a role in his life. You don't want to be that woman doing the same thing to him. Now let me share something even more powerful with you. When you use a man's name consistently and intentionally, you're not just creating attraction in the moment. You're training your own mind to see him clearly. You're preventing yourself from projecting fantasies onto him. You're staying grounded in reality, which protects you from getting swept up in relationships that aren't actually good for you. Here's what I mean by that. When you call someone baby or honey, you're using language that could apply to anyone. You're speaking to a role, not a person. And when you speak to a role, it becomes very easy to ignore red flags, overlook incompatibilities, and convince yourself that this relationship is something it's not, because you're not actually relating to the real human being in front of you. You're relating to your idea of what a boyfriend should be. But when you consistently use his name, when you say David or Michael or Robert, you're reminding yourself that this is a specific person with specific qualities, specific flaws, specific patterns of behavior. You're keeping yourself honest. You're staying present with reality. And paradoxically, this makes you more attractive because men can sense when a woman is actually seeing them versus when a woman is just seeing what she wants to see. Quality men have often experienced relationships where women fell in love with potential rather than reality, where women were more interested in the idea of having a partner than in actually knowing and appreciating who their partner truly was. When you demonstrate through your language that you see him clearly, that you're engaged with who he actually is, you stand out as different. You stand out as safe. You stand out as someone he can trust to stay grounded even when emotions run high. Let me give you another layer to this. The way you say someone's name matters just as much as the fact that you use it. You can say David in 100 different ways, and each one communicates something different. You can say his name with warmth, and it feels like coming home. You can say it with curiosity, and it invites him to share more. You can say it with respect, and it honors his dignity. You can say it with playfulness, and it creates lightness and joy. You can say it with desire, and it makes his heart race. This is the art of using someone's name. It's not just about avoiding pet names. It's about learning to communicate everything you want to express through the intentional use of this most personal word. Practice this. When you're alone, say the name of someone you care about in different tones. Say it like you're happy to see them. Say it like you're grateful for them. Say it like you trust them. Say it like you desire them. Notice how the same word carries completely different energy depending on how you deliver it. This is the skill you're developing. This is the power you're learning to wield. Now, I want to address a question that might be coming up for you. When is it appropriate to start using pet names? Surely there's a time and place for calling someone honey or sweetheart or baby. Yes, absolutely. But here's the key. Pet names should evolve naturally from a place of established intimacy. They should be earned, not assumed. In a committed long-term relationship where deep intimacy exists, pet names can be beautiful. They become part of your unique language together. But even then, notice what the healthiest couples do. They don't abandon their partner's actual name. They move fluidly between using names and using endearments. They know when formality and specificity matter, and they know when playful pet names add warmth and affection. But in the early stages of knowing someone, in the dating phase, in the courtship period, your default should always be using his name. This keeps you both grounded in reality. It prevents false intimacy. It maintains appropriate boundaries while still allowing real connection to develop. And here's something crucial. When you demonstrate this level of maturity and emotional intelligence, when you show that you understand the difference between authentic connection and manufactured closeness, you attract a completely different caliber of man. You attract men who have done their own emotional work. You attract men who value substance over surface-level flattery. You attract men who are looking for a genuine partnership with a woman who knows herself and respects them. The men who are put off by your use of their name instead of generic pet names are showing you something important. They're showing you that they're not comfortable with being truly seen. They're revealing that they prefer surface-level pleasantries over deeper connection. They're demonstrating that they're looking for someone to play a role in their life rather than for a real partner. And you want to know this information early. You want these men to self-select out of your life so you can focus your energy on the men who appreciate your depth and authenticity. Let me share a story with you. I once knew a woman named Margaret who was 63 and re-entering the dating world after being widowed. She had been married for 35 years to a wonderful man, and she felt completely lost in modern dating. She did what most women do. She tried to be sweet, accommodating, immediately affectionate. She used honey and sweetie with every man she met, thinking it would make her seem warm and approachable. The results were disappointing. She attracted men who were looking for a caretaker, a mother figure, someone to manage their lives. She attracted men who were emotionally immature despite being in their 60s and 70s. She attracted men who were more interested in what she could do for them than in who she actually was. Then Margaret learned about the power of using names intentionally. She started a new approach. On dates, she would use the man's name frequently, deliberately, with attention and warmth. She would say, "Thomas, that's such an interesting perspective." Or, "Robert, I appreciate you sharing that with me." Or, "James, I'm curious what you think about this." The shift in the quality of men she attracted was immediate and dramatic. She started meeting men who were thoughtful, emotionally available, genuinely interested in knowing her. Why? Because her language signaled that she was a woman of substance who expected to be met at a mature level. She wasn't trying to manufacture instant closeness. She was building real connection brick by brick, and the men who were capable of that responded to her completely differently. Within 6 months, Margaret was in a beautiful relationship with a man who matched her emotional maturity, her intelligence, and her capacity for genuine intimacy. And she told me that one of the things he said to her early on was, "I love how you say my name. When you say Edward, I feel like you really see me." Most women I've dated seemed more interested in having a boyfriend than in actually knowing who I am. This is the power of what we're talking about. This is why it matters. Now, let me give you some specific scenarios where using a man's name instead of pet names creates powerful impact. Scenario 1. You're disagreeing about something. Most women will try to soften the disagreement by using a pet name. They'll say, "But honey, I see it differently." This actually undermines your position because it makes you sound like you're more concerned with managing his feelings than with expressing your genuine thoughts. Instead, try this. "Michael, I see this differently. Here's my perspective." Using his name keeps the conversation adult and respectful while still allowing you to stand in your truth. It signals that you respect both yourself and him enough to have a real conversation. Scenario 2. You're expressing desire or attraction. Many women feel awkward about this and default to pet names as a way to soften the vulnerability of expressing desire. They might say, "Come here, baby," when they want physical closeness. But try this instead. "Michael, come here." Said with the right tone, with warmth and desire in your voice, his name becomes incredibly seductive. It's specific, it's personal. It says, "I want you, this particular man, not just anyone." Scenario 3. You're setting a boundary. This is where using names becomes especially powerful. When you need to say no or express a limit, using a man's name keeps you grounded and clear. Don't say, "Sweetie, I'm not comfortable with that." Say, "Robert, I'm not comfortable with that." The difference is subtle but significant. Without the pet name, you sound more authoritative, more certain, more like a woman who knows herself and her boundaries. With the pet name, you sound apologetic, like you're trying to soften the blow of having standards. Scenario 4. He's sharing something important with you, whether it's a story from his past, a dream for the future, or a current challenge. How you respond matters enormously. Don't say, "Oh, honey, that must have been hard." Say, "David, that must have been hard." Then pause. Let the weight of your words land. Let him feel that you're truly present with him, truly listening, truly seeing him in his experience. Scenario 5. You're introducing him to others. This might seem minor, but it's not. When you introduce a man you're dating to friends or family, using his actual name matters. Don't say, "This is my honey." Say, "This is David." Then you can add whatever context is appropriate, like, "This is David. We've been seeing each other for a few months." This signals to everyone, including him, that you see him as a whole person, not as a role you need filled. Now, I want to talk about something that might be uncomfortable but necessary. Some of you have been using pet names as a way to avoid true intimacy. I know that sounds backward. Using terms of endearment seems like intimacy, right? But sometimes it's actually a shield. When you call someone baby or honey, You can maintain emotional distance while appearing close. You can avoid the vulnerability of truly seeing and being seen. You can keep things surface level while telling yourself you're being affectionate. This is especially true if you've been hurt in the past. Pet names feel safer because they're generic. They don't require you to be fully present with the reality of who this person is. But here's what I want you to understand. You cannot build a genuine, fulfilling relationship from a place of self-protection. You cannot experience real love while keeping yourself safe from being truly known. Using someone's name requires presence. It requires that you drop the protective shield and show up as yourself, engaging with them as they truly are. This might feel scary. That's okay. Growth often feels scary at first, but I promise you, the relationships you build from this place of authentic presence are worth infinitely more than the superficial connections you can maintain while hiding behind pleasantries and generic endearments. Let's talk about tonality for a moment, because this is where many women miss the mark. You can say someone's name in a way that sounds cold, formal, or distant. That's not what we're going for. The goal is to say a man's name with warmth, with presence, with intention. Think about how you say the name of someone you deeply love and respect. Maybe it's your child, your best friend, your late husband. When you say their name, there's a quality to your voice that communicates care. That's the tonality you want to cultivate when you say a man's name in a romantic context. Practice this. When you're alone, say a man's name out loud. Say it like you're genuinely happy to see him. Say it like you appreciate something he's done. Say it like you're curious about his thoughts. Say it like you desire him. Feel how the same word can carry completely different energy based on your intention and delivery. The most powerful way to say someone's name is with a slight smile in your voice. Even over the phone or in text, people can sense when you're smiling as you speak. It creates warmth and openness. It invites connection. It makes the other person feel good to be in your presence. Another element is pacing. Don't rush through his name like it's just another word in the sentence. Give it a moment of emphasis, let it land. This doesn't mean you dramatically pause every time you use it. It just means you don't throw it away. You give it the weight it deserves. Here's something else to consider. When you use a man's name consistently, you also give him permission to use yours. You create a dynamic where both of you are seeing and acknowledging each other as whole people. This mutual recognition becomes the foundation of a healthy relationship where both people feel valued and respected. Compare this to relationships where pet names dominate from the start. Often these relationships have an imbalanced dynamic. One person is playing the role of caretaker, while the other is playing the role of being cared for. Or both people are performing roles for each other rather than being authentic. Neither person is truly seeing the other. They're seeing what they want to see, what they need to see, what they've been taught they should see. When you and a man use each other's actual names, you're both staying accountable to reality. You're both showing up as adults in adult relationship. You're both committing to seeing clearly even when it's tempting to retreat into fantasy or projection. Now let me address a specific concern that some women have expressed. What if I forget and use a pet name out of habit? Does that ruin everything? No, of course not. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness and intention. If you accidentally call someone honey or sweetie, it's not the end of the world. What matters is your overall pattern of communication. Are you mostly using his name with intention and presence? Then an occasional slip into old habits isn't a problem. In fact, it can even be endearing when it happens naturally, and rarely because it feels spontaneous rather than calculated. The issue is when pet names are your default, your go-to, your main way of addressing someone. That's when you're creating problems. That's when you're falling into patterns that undermine attraction and prevent genuine connection. Here's another layer to this. Using someone's name well requires that you actually remember it, that you pay attention to it, that you think about it. This might sound obvious, but in the age of dating apps and rapid-fire first dates, many people don't truly register the names of the people they're meeting. They're too busy thinking about themselves, their nervousness, what they're going to say next. When you commit to using a man's name intentionally, you're forced to be present. You're forced to actually listen when he introduces himself. You're forced to pay attention in a way that many women don't. And men notice this. They notice when a woman truly hears them from the very first moment. They notice when a woman is fully present rather than lost in her own head. This is another way that using names instead of pet names signals your quality as a potential partner. It shows emotional maturity. It shows social intelligence. It shows that you're capable of genuine connection rather than just performing the role of a girlfriend. Let me talk about text messages and written communication for a moment, because this is where many women default to pet names, even when they're doing well in person. You're texting back and forth with a man you're dating, and it feels natural to write, "Good morning, honey," or "Have a great day, sweetie." But here's what I want you to do instead. Write, "Good morning, Michael. Hope your meeting goes well today." Or, "David, thinking of you. Have a beautiful day." Do you see the difference? You've personalized the message. You've shown that you were actually listening when he told you about his day. You've demonstrated presence and attention. In text, using someone's name has an even stronger impact because written communication lacks the warmth of tone and body language. When you include his name in a text, you're adding that personal touch that makes the message feel like it's truly from you to him, not just a generic message you could have sent to anyone. This is especially powerful in longer text conversations. Every few messages use his name. It keeps the conversation feeling connected and personal. It prevents the communication from becoming just an exchange of information. It maintains the human element, the intimacy, the sense that two specific people are choosing to share this moment. Now I want to talk about what happens in a man's mind and heart when you consistently use his name with warmth and intention. Remember, most men don't experience this. Most women they date either jump straight into pet names or use their name in a perfunctory, distracted way. When you're different, when you say his name like it matters, something shifts in how he sees you. First, he starts to feel special around you, not in an ego-inflating way, but in a genuine way. He feels like you see him, like you're choosing him specifically, like your attention and affection aren't generic. This is incredibly attractive because quality men don't want to be just another boyfriend. They want to be chosen for who they actually are. Second, he begins to trust you more. Why? Because your language signals that you're grounded in reality. You're not living in fantasy land. You're not trying to rush into intimacy before it's been earned. You're building connection at a pace that feels sustainable and real. This makes him feel safe to open up to you, to be vulnerable, to invest emotionally. Third, he starts to associate his own name with positive feelings when you're around. This is basic psychology. Every time you say David with warmth, appreciation, or desire, his brain creates an association between his name and feeling good. Over time, even thinking about you becomes pleasurable because you've conditioned him to feel valued and seen. Fourth, he begins to pursue you more actively. This might seem counterintuitive, but it's true. When a woman demonstrates that she's not desperate for connection, that she's capable of being present without being needy, that she sees him clearly and still chooses to be there, a quality man responds by pursuing more. He wants more of that. He wants to be around someone who makes him feel that way. This is the opposite of what happens when women use pet names too early. That signals neediness, desperation, a desire to manufacture closeness before it exists. And that makes quality men pull back. They sense the pressure, they feel the unearned intimacy. They recognize the pattern of women who are more in love with the idea of a relationship than with the actual person in front of them. Let me share another important aspect of this. Using someone's name well requires emotional regulation on your part. You can't say someone's name with warmth and presence if you're anxious, if you're in your head worrying about whether he likes you, if you're performing rather than being authentic. So practicing using names intentionally is actually a practice in being present, in managing your own emotional state, in showing up as your best self. This is deeper work than just changing a few words. This is about developing your capacity for genuine intimacy. When you notice yourself wanting to use a pet name, pause. Check in with yourself. What are you feeling? Are you trying to manage his emotions? Are you trying to create a sense of closeness because you're feeling insecure? Are you hiding behind pleasantries because being truly present feels too vulnerable? These moments of self-awareness are gold. They're opportunities to grow, to heal old patterns, to become the woman who naturally attracts the kind of relationship she truly desires. And here's something beautiful that happens as you practice this. You'll notice that using someone's name with intention actually slows you down. It pulls you out of autopilot. It makes you more conscious of your words, your tone, your presence. This slower, more intentional way of communicating creates space for real connection. It prevents the rushed, surface-level interactions that characterize so much of modern dating. In a world where everyone is moving fast, where people swipe right based on a photo, where connections are made and broken in moments, being a woman who slows down, who pays attention, who uses language intentionally, is revolutionary. You become unforgettable. You become the woman he thinks about after he gets home. You become the one who's different from everyone else. Now, let's talk about what to do when a man uses pet names with you early on. Maybe you're on a second or third date and he's already calling you babe or sweetie. How do you handle this? First, don't be rude or critical. Remember, most people use pet names out of habit or because they think it's expected. He's not intentionally trying to be disrespectful or presumptuous. Instead, gently redirect by using his name in your response. If he says, "That's great, babe," you respond with, "Thanks, Robert. I'm glad you think so." You're modeling the behavior you want to see. You're showing, rather than telling. If he continues with pet names and it bothers you, at some point you might need to address it directly. But you can do this in a way that's light and kind. You might say, "Robert, I've noticed you call me babe. I actually prefer when you use my name. I like how it sounds when you say it." This is honest, direct, and even a little flirtatious. Most men will appreciate the feedback and adjust. If a man responds poorly to this request, if he gets defensive or dismissive, that's important information. It tells you he's not capable of respecting your preferences. It tells you he's more attached to his own habits than to making you comfortable. It tells you he's probably not the right match for you. Remember, how someone responds to a small, reasonable request tells you how they'll handle bigger issues down the road. A quality man will appreciate your honesty and will want to make you feel good. He'll adjust his language because he values you. Let me address another question. What about terms of endearment that aren't pet names? Things like my love or darling or dearest. These are different from baby and honey because they carry more weight and intentionality. They're less common, which means they don't have the same generic quality. However, the same principle applies. In the early stages of knowing someone, even these more elegant terms of endearment should be used sparingly, if at all. Save them for moments when they truly mean something, when the emotion behind them is so strong that his name alone doesn't fully express it. And even then, You might combine them with his name. My darling David carries so much more weight than just my darling. It's specific, it's personal, it's a unique phrase that belongs to the two of you. The key is always specificity over generality, intentionality over habit, presence over performance. I want to talk now about something that might be challenging for some of you. If you've been single for a long time, if you've been through a divorce or the death of a spouse, you might have a lot of longing built up. You might be craving intimacy, connection, closeness. And that longing can make you rush things. It can make you use pet names too early because you're trying to create the feeling of being in a relationship before you actually are. I understand this completely. Loneliness is real. The desire for connection is valid and human. But I need you to hear this. Rushing intimacy doesn't get you to genuine connection faster. It actually prevents you from building the kind of relationship that can truly satisfy your longing. Think of it like trying to eat a cake while it's still baking. Your hunger is real. Your desire for cake is valid, but taking it out of the oven too early doesn't give you what you actually want. It gives you something half-formed, unsatisfying, unable to nourish you the way you need. Using pet names too early is like that. It gives you a semblance of intimacy without the substance. It might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't build toward anything real. It actually prevents the slow, steady development of genuine connection. So when you feel that urge to call someone honey or baby, when you feel yourself wanting to manufacture closeness, pause, breathe. Feel your longing without acting on it impulsively. Then choose differently. Choose presence. Choose using his name. Choose building connection that's real, even if it's slower. This is hard work. I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it because it leads to relationships that actually satisfy you. Relationships built on truth and mutual recognition rather than on fantasy and projection. Let me give you some additional phrases that pair beautifully with using someone's name and create powerful connection without the problems of generic pet names. Instead of "Thanks, honey," try "David, I really appreciate that." The combination of his name plus specific appreciation is incredibly powerful. Instead of "Good night, sweetie," try "Good night, Michael. Today was wonderful." You're using his name and you're being specific about what you valued. Instead of "I missed you, baby," try "Robert, it's so good to see you." This expresses your pleasure at his presence without the manufactured intimacy of "missed you" after a short separation. Instead of "Love you, babe," try "David, you make me happy." Save "I love you" for when you truly mean it, and when you say it, use his name. "I love you, David" hits completely differently than "Love you, babe." Do you see the pattern? You're being specific. You're being present. You're expressing genuine feeling without hiding behind generic phrases. This is attractive. This is what quality men respond to. Now let's talk about body language and eye contact, because using someone's name reaches its full power when it's combined with genuine presence in your body and your gaze. When you say a man's name, look at him, make eye contact, let him see that you mean it, that you're fully there with him. This combination of his name plus your full presence is magnetic, it's rare, it's precious. In a world where everyone is distracted, where people are half present at best, being someone who truly shows up is a gift. When you say "David" while looking into his eyes with warmth and attention, you're giving him something most people never receive: the experience of being fully seen. This might feel vulnerable at first. Looking someone in the eye while saying their name with genuine feeling requires courage. It requires that you drop your armor and be real. But this vulnerability is what creates genuine intimacy. This is what makes the difference between surface-level dating and deep connection. Practice this with people in your everyday life. When you're talking to a friend, to a family member, to a colleague, practice saying their name while maintaining warm eye contact. Notice what happens. Notice how it deepens the conversation. But notice how it creates moments of real connection. Then bring this skill into your romantic life. When you're on a date, when you're talking with a man you're interested in, practice saying his name with full presence. Watch how he responds. Watch how his face softens, how he leans in, how the quality of the conversation shifts. This is the art of attraction for mature women. It's not about game playing or manipulation. It's not about looking younger or trying to compete with women half your age. It's about developing the capacity for genuine presence and connection that actually deepens with age and experience. Young women often don't have this capacity yet. They're still learning who they are. They're still caught up in performance and approval seeking. But you, as a woman over 60, have the potential to offer something completely different. You can offer genuine presence. You can offer the wisdom to see people clearly. You can offer the confidence to build connection slowly and authentically. Using someone's name instead of generic pet names is one expression of this mature approach to relationship. It's a small shift that represents a much larger transformation in how you show up in romance. Let me address one more concern. Some women worry. What if I sound too formal? What if using his name makes me seem cold or distant? This concern comes from the fear of not being liked, not being seen as warm and approachable. But here's the truth. Warmth doesn't come from the words you use. It comes from the energy behind those words. You can say honey in a cold, dismissive way. And you can say David in a way that melts his heart. The difference is in your presence, your intention, your genuine care. So don't worry about seeming formal. Focus instead on being warm. Let your warmth come through in your tone, your smile, your body language, your genuine interest in him as a person. When you say his name with true warmth, there's nothing formal about it. It feels intimate and personal in a way that honey never can. Think about the people in your life who make you feel most loved. How do they say your name? Probably with a warmth and specificity that makes you feel special every time they say it. That's what you're cultivating in your romantic life. As we move toward the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge. For the next week, pay attention to how you address the people in your life. Notice when you use names and when you use generic terms. Notice what happens in your interactions when you're more intentional about using names with warmth and presence. If you're currently dating someone, commit to using his name consistently for a full week. Notice what shifts. Notice how he responds. Notice how you feel. This isn't about manipulation. This is about experimenting with more authentic communication and seeing what happens. And if you're not currently dating, practice this skill in your everyday life. Use your friends' names intentionally. Use your family members' names with warmth. Build this muscle so that when you do meet someone you're interested in, this way of communicating is natural for you. Remember, the goal isn't to follow a script or to perform a technique. The goal is to develop your capacity for genuine presence and connection. Using someone's name is simply one expression of that deeper capacity. The 3 words that make a quality man yours aren't magical. They're not a trick or a hack. They're simply his name, said with intention, with warmth, with genuine recognition of who he is. This seems simple, but it's profound in its effects. When you master this, when you become a woman who truly sees people and communicates that recognition through intentional use of their name, you transform your dating life. You attract different men. You build different connections. You create relationships based on truth and mutual respect, rather than on fantasy and need. So there you have it. The 3 words that change everything in attraction and connection after 60. His actual name. Not baby, not honey. His name, spoken with warmth, with intention, with genuine presence. I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. I know this might have challenged some of your assumptions about romance and communication. That's good. Growth happens when we're willing to question our habits and try something different. If this resonated with you, if you found value in this perspective, please hit that like button right now. It helps this message reach more women who are ready for genuine connection in their dating lives. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Have you noticed the difference between using names versus pet names? I read every comment and I love hearing your stories and insights. Share this video with a friend who's navigating the dating world. Sometimes the most powerful gift we can give someone is a new perspective that might transform how they approach relationships. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Heart Code and turn on notifications. We create content every week about building the relationships and the life you truly deserve as a mature woman. This channel exists to support you in showing up as your most authentic, powerful self. If you want to support this channel so we can continue bringing you content that empowers rather than manipulates, that respects your intelligence rather than feeding you empty tricks, please click the super thanks button below this video. Your support makes a real difference in allowing us to keep this channel growing and serving women like you. Remember this, you are not too old for genuine connection. You are not past the age of attraction. You are entering the most powerful phase of your romantic life if you choose to show up with authenticity, presence, and the wisdom that comes from lived experience. Use his name. Say it with warmth. Say it with intention. Say it like it matters, because it does, and so do you. I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue exploring the truths about attraction, connection, and power in relationships after 60. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay present with the people in your life, and trust that the right connections will recognize and value the gift of your authentic presence. This is the Heart Code, where we unlock the deeper truths about relationships and the power you hold. Thank you for being here.